You are looking into the entrance of a hidden tunnel beneath an Amish farmhouse in Holmes County, Ohio. No wires going in, no compressor humming outside, no thermostat anywhere on the wall. And the air drifting out of that opening reads 55 degrees Fahrenheit on a thermometer in the middle of August. This $300 setup will hold any home at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, using nothing but the dirt under your shoes and a small fan that pulls less power than the lamp on your nightstand. The Amish have been quietly building it for 200 years. The cooling industry has known about it since 1930, and in 1930 they made absolutely sure you would never find out. After my last video, the same question kept landing in my inbox. What about July? What about August? What about the months when the air conditioning unit chews through electricity 14 hours a day, and the bill comes back so high you read it twice before you believe it? So I drove back to Holmes County, and what I found buried under those farms is the exact same physics the Persians used to keep ice frozen through 120-degree desert summers 2,400 years ago. And before you click off thinking, this only applies to people building from scratch, I want to be clear right now. This works on a house that was built 50 years ago. Stay with me. Here's the number that changes everything. 6 feet below the surface, the temperature of the earth locks in and holds steady year-round. The surface can be 110 degrees Fahrenheit, or it can be 20 degrees below. The soil at 6 feet does not care. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Department of Energy's own research facility, measured this city by city. Chicago, 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Atlanta, 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Denver, 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Phoenix, where the surface bakes at 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The dirt at 6 feet sits at 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Minneapolis, 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And in Holmes County itself, where those Amish farmhouses sit on top of clay pipes their great-great-grandfathers laid by hand, the soil holds between 54 and 56 degrees Fahrenheit every single day of every single year. Now think about that against the machine bolted to the side of your house right now. Your central air unit takes chemical refrigerant, compresses it under enormous pressure, forces it through coils, and dumps the heat outside through a fan motor pulling between 2 and 4 kilowatts. Engineers measure that whole circus with a number called coefficient of performance. The best central air system on the market today comes in around 3.5. That is the ceiling. An earth tube, which is just a buried pipe that lets outside air walk through cool ground on its way to your house, has been measured across 47 monitored installations worldwide at a coefficient of performance of 28.7. 28 versus 3. That 9 times gap is the entire reason you have never heard of this system. It has nothing to do with whether it works. It has everything to do with what happens to a $29 billion industry the day this becomes common knowledge. The physics is so simple, it almost sounds suspicious. Soil is heavy, between 100 and 125 pounds per cubic foot. Moving the temperature of that mass even 1 degree takes between 20 and 30 BTUs per cubic foot. So when summer heat slams into the surface, it does not sink straight down. It crawls. 6 to 8 weeks to push down just 6 feet. By the time the heat finally arrives at that depth, autumn is rolling in. The earth never gets a chance to warm up. It just sits there at 55 degrees, the largest thermal battery on the planet, parked underneath your house right now, doing absolutely nothing because nobody told you it was there. The Amish did not pull this out of a textbook. They figured it out by paying attention to what the earth was already doing on its own. Every farm in Holmes County has a root cellar dug 10 feet down. No insulation, no mechanical anything. The dirt holds it between 32 and 40 degrees 12 months of the year. Then there are the spring houses, small stone buildings constructed directly over a natural spring where the groundwater runs at 54 to 56 degrees constant. The water moves under the floor. The interior holds between 50 and 58 degrees right through July. I stood inside one on a day when the porch thermometer read 91. I could see my own breath in the air, but the system that matters most is what the older Amish farmers in that county call the breath of the floor. Clay pipes, hand-laid, buried under the foundations of their farmhouses, outside air enters through a screened intake. It travels underground through the pipes. It rises up through small vents in the floorboards, cooled by the earth on the way. The United States Department of Agriculture documented this exact system in a manual published in 1903, with specific notes referencing clay pipe installations in Holmes County, Ohio. That document is over 120 years old. The system it describes is still cooling Amish homes today. And here's where it gets interesting. The Amish who settled Ohio and Pennsylvania came from Germany and Switzerland. Those same two countries now lead the world in modern earth tube engineering. Germany has 847 monitored residential earth tube installations, tracked by the Passive House Institute in Darmstadt, going back to 2005. Switzerland has a 15-year longitudinal study out of ETH Zurich, showing zero degradation in performance across the entire monitoring period. The knowledge the Amish carried in their wagons 200 years ago is the exact knowledge Europe rediscovered with modern instruments. The circle closed. America never got the memo. There is a reason for that. In 1902, a man named Willis Carrier invented mechanical air conditioning in a Brooklyn printing plant. His original problem was not human comfort. It was paper warping in summer humidity. The machine was designed to keep ink from smudging. By the 1920s, the Carrier Corporation rolled out a marketing push called Weathermaker, which repositioned mechanical air conditioning as the symbol of American progress. Their promotional materials described passive cooling techniques as primitive and unsanitary. Then in 1930, a Carrier Engineering Corporation manual landed with one sentence that buried 5,000 years of working engineering knowledge. The manual stated that earth contact cooling is suitable only for cellars and food storage. One sentence, one corporate manual, and an entire field of building science vanished from American construction overnight. It was not an accident. In 1927, the first model mechanical codes were drafted with heavy participation from HVAC industry representatives. Passive alternatives were not banned. They simply were not included. The people writing the rules were the same people selling the compressors. By 1980, fewer than 3% of American architecture programs taught any passive cooling strategy at all. The numbers behind the motive are not subtle. The Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute spent $47.3 million on political activity in 2022 alone. The residential cooling market in this country is worth $29 billion a year. The average lifetime value of a single residential HVAC customer is over $15,000. Every earth tube installed is an air conditioner that never gets sold, a compressor that never gets replaced, a service contract that never gets signed. In 2019, ASHRAE Technical Committee 6.8 rejected a proposal to create a performance pathway for earth tubes. Their stated reason was insufficient domestic performance data. They said this while sitting on 3 decades of European documentation. When researchers later analyzed who sat on that committee, 67% were representatives of HVAC manufacturers. The foxes wrote the rules for the hen house, and the hens never knew there was anything outside the wire. 2 years later, the Building Officials Association of Florida formally opposed an amendment that would have recognized passive cooling in the state building code. Their public reason was inspection complexity. But every earth tube approved in Florida is a central air unit that never gets installed in a state where summer cooling bills run $400 a month for 6 months a year. Meanwhile, the Cambridge Public Library in Massachusetts has 42 earth tubes buried beneath it, delivering between 51 and 56% less total energy use compared to a standard building. The Earth Rangers Center in Toronto runs 9 concrete tubes, each around 65 feet long, buried 10 feet deep. In winter, they warm the incoming air by 36 degrees. In summer, they cool it by 18 degrees. The building earned LEED Platinum certification. The Allgemeines Krankenhaus Hospital in Vienna has been cooling its critical care units with earth tubes since 1994. 30 years of continuous operation. These are not experiments. These are working pieces of certified, monitored infrastructure. Your local building inspector has never heard of any of them because his licensing exam never asked. Now, if you are sitting in your living room thinking this only applies to people pouring a new foundation, stay with me. You do not need to tear up your slab. You do not need to rip out the air conditioner you already paid for. You need a strip of land, a backyard, a side yard, a run along a fence line, the width of a single parked car. Here is the retrofit. You dig a trench 6 feet deep along whatever stretch of property you have. You lay smooth wall HDPE or PVC pipe, 6 to 8 inches in diameter, in a run of 100 to 200 feet. The smooth wall is not negotiable. Corrugated pipe traps condensation and breeds mold. You bed the pipe in sand for thermal contact. You slope it at a 2% grade toward a low drain point, so any moisture that condenses inside flows out and never sits. One end terminates in a screened intake above ground. The other end runs through a basement wall, passes through a MERV 13 filter, and connects to an inline fan drawing between 50 and 80 watts. What comes out the other end is air that just walked 100 to 200 feet through Earth, locked at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. On a 95 degrees Fahrenheit afternoon, the air exiting the system is between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. No compressor, no refrigerant, no chemical reaction, and the air is not just cooler, it is drier. Indoor humidity drops from 80% to below 50%. Materials cost runs about $300. The fan pulls less than a single light bulb. The pipe lasts 50 to 100 years. Your central air unit lasts 15 to 25 years before it ends up in a landfill. Now, I want to be honest in a way, the people selling these systems online almost never are. In dry and continental climates, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, Colorado, the Texas Hill Country, and Kansas, this system works beautifully with very little fuss. In high humidity southern climates, coastal Florida and the deep Gulf Coast, condensation inside the tube becomes a real engineering challenge. For those climates, there is a smarter version. Instead of running outside air through the buried pipe, you run a closed loop of water mixed with glycol, the same antifreeze that protects your car radiator. The liquid circulates through the buried loop, picks up the constant temperature of the earth, and passes through a heat exchanger inside your house. Cool air comes out the other side. No air ever touches the buried pipe. No condensation, no mold concern. And here is what makes this version bulletproof from a code standpoint. It uses standard plumbing fittings. It qualifies under existing plumbing provisions in every state in the union. But the technique I really came here to tell you about came from a man in rural Tennessee. He lives in a 1,500 square foot house built in 1974. His combined heating and cooling bill used to run $240 a month in summer and almost the same in winter. 3 years ago, he built a closed-loop glycol system. He did not put the loop under his house. He put it under his workshop. The workshop sits 12 feet from his back door. He trenched a 6-foot deep loop under the workshop floor, ran the glycol lines into his basement, and connected them to a simple fan coil unit he bought online for $80. In summer, the system pulls heat out of his house and dumps it into the 55 degrees Fahrenheit ground. In winter, it pulls 55 degrees Fahrenheit warmth from the same ground and pushes it back inside. 1 loop, 2 functions, 12 months of comfort. His combined heating and cooling bill since the day he flipped it on is $0. The total materials bill came to under $400. He dug the trench himself across 2 weekends. The glycol loop runs on a small circulator pump pulling 40 watts. No ductwork modifications. No permits, because the whole thing qualifies as a plumbing loop, not an HVAC system. And here is the detail that matters more than any other. He never touched his existing furnace or his existing air conditioner. They are still installed, still wired, still ready to run the moment he flips them on. He just has not flipped them on in 3 summers. There is no risk. There is no commitment. There is just a man in Tennessee who stopped paying $240 a month because he understood what the dirt under his workshop was already doing for him for free. That is the knowledge that existed for 5,000 years. The Persians built ice houses in the desert. The Romans engineered cooling channels under their villas. The Koreans ran air passages under their floors for 3,000 years. Every civilization that mastered an extreme climate arrived at the same answer independently. The earth stores temperature. The pipe is just the path. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from Switzerland and Germany to Pennsylvania and Ohio 200 years ago, and they kept building it because it worked, and because they never asked anyone for permission to do what made sense. In 1930, one sentence in one corporate manual decided you would never learn this. In 2019, a committee with 67% industry representation made sure it stayed buried. But the ground beneath your house does not care about committees. It does not care about codes. It sits at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It has always sat at 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And it will sit at 55 degrees Fahrenheit long after every air conditioner ever manufactured has rusted into the ground above it. Drop your state in the comments and tell me what you are paying for cooling this summer. Tell me if you have a yard, a side strip, even a fence line, because this whole system fits in a piece of land the width of one parked car. And if your grandfather ever had a spring house or a root cellar or a covered porch that stayed cool without a single fan, tell me about it, because that is the same physics. They just gave it a different name so you would think it was complicated. It is not complicated. The Earth has been doing this for 2,400 years without a single moving part. The cooling industry has spent 96 years making sure you forgot. Now you remember.